Y'all do know that Fulton County was raided by the FBI. Yeah, they went and picked up the ballots. So I want to cover this briefly just to give you guys an update on the FBI raid of Fulton County. Y'all, I'm right here in the belly of the beast. Okay, I am in the bastion of colored communism. And so I have a video of an attorney that I want to share that's going to help us parse through the facts versus the panic. And then I'm going to give you guys some commentary and my thoughts on what I believe about this, because you are absolutely, I need to revisit a topic that I covered several years ago where I talked about the Cascade Cabal. And I'm going to explain to you who the Cascade Cabal is. I'm going to identify them by name, and it'll all make sense in a minute. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video.
All right, we have to talk about the FBI raid that happened yesterday in Fulton County. Everybody under the sun has been asking me about this. So I am going to try to give you the straight facts. The media is acting either like this is the worst thing that has happened in the history of the earth, or people are celebrating like they are finally getting vindicated for things that they believe. And I don't think either of those things are accurate. So let me just give you the facts as we know them. Yesterday, January 28th, Wednesday, the FBI showed up with a search warrant at a facility in South Fulton County in Union City. And this facility holds the 2020 election ballots, among other things, okay? The search warrant was signed by a federal magistrate judge. Before anybody goes off half-cocked about that, she is not a Trump appointee. Federal magistrate judges are not appointed by the president.
Right.
They are chosen by the district judges in their area. She's been, my understanding is she's been a magistrate judge for many, many years, okay? She signed this warrant. Do we know right now what they told her, which would get her to sign the warrant? No, we don't know. We know the threshold is they have to establish probable cause to this judge. Not proof, absolute proof that a crime has occurred, but probable cause in order to get that warrant signed. We do have what I believe is a copy of the right warrant. This is something that was posted through social media by a reporter from the AJC, the local Atlanta paper. And so here it is. This is the first page. The second page is attachment B, shows you the things that they were allowed to seize. And you can pause to read it, but it's all physical ballots, all tabulator tapes, all ballot images, all voter rolls for the 2020 general election. Okay. Now at the top, you can see the paragraph 1 says all records related to violations of Title 52 U.S. Code sections 20701 and 20511. So we can glean a little bit of an idea of why they are looking at these records. Okay, so section 20701 says, and I have to read, I don't do federal law, y'all, so I got to read. 20701 has to do with officers of elections have to preserve records for 22 months after an election. All right. The penalty, if you don't do that, it's up to a year in jail, which is not too serious. Section 20511 is the meatier one with up to 5 years in prison. And among other things, it's criminal charges for false or fraudulent voter registrations or casting or tabulating ballots that are known to be materially false. And like I said, that can carry up to 5 years. All right.
Listen. When I tell y'all Fulton County's corruption, this is like a 40-year problem, maybe longer. I adjudicated ballots in the 2020 election in DeKalb County at the old Target building. I know for a fact, I know what I saw. Some of those ballots was I was like, y'all can't be serious. Y'all can't be serious. Let me explain something to you guys. I'm hopeful, but I firmly believe a lot of people are going to argue, why are we doing this now, this many years after the fact? Why this is too little too late, right? I firmly believe that Donald Trump would not have gone through everything that he went through. And this is the hill he's willing to die on, because that man believes in his heart of hearts that he won that election. And so many of us believe that too. So many of us are like, you can't pay me enough money to believe that Joe Biden got more votes than Barack Obama. It's just no way. Donald Trump believes he lost Georgia by 11,000 votes. Now, that's not a lot. We watched what happened. I was in Florida watching the election night 2020. I remember when the counting stopped. I remember it. And I was like, see, oh, here it go. I said, they about to pull something. What they were doing, and this is my opinion, YouTube, they were waiting for all of the other votes to come in from around the state. And then in the 9th hour, they needed to figure out, this is how I project it happen. They got a phone call. How many more votes y'all need? Don't worry about it. We got them. They knew how many more votes they needed. 11,000 votes. I am telling you, we can't undo the results of that election. The time has passed. I get that. But truth absolutely matters. We have people who've been working on election integrity in the state. Garland Favorito has uncovered so many things and has been pushing for this to happen, that in order for it to happen, you had to get a federal judge to get involved, to give the FBI the warrant needed to be like, let's see the ballots. Because Garland Favorito's been asking for this. This 2026. He's been asking for this for years. But Fulton County has not wanted to furnish it. And I'm going to explain what you're seeing with Rob Pitts and Marvin Arrington and all of the pro-wokety woke, blackety black, Cascade Cabal. Oh yeah, I'm going to explain to you what that is. But what she is saying here is these two codes give the FBI access to information such as the ballots, the tape, and the voter rolls. We know for a fact that there were dead people voting in that election. I've had people say that they've never, ever requested a mail-in ballot. And when they look at their voter registration on the Georgia Secretary of State, it has records that they requested ballots. And they're like, I've never requested an absentee ballot. Like, what is this? I never did that. Some funny business absolutely happened, not just in Fulton County, but in DeKalb County too. But this is the concentration of this is the lone bastion of colored communism, and where melanated Marxists rule and reign. Atlanta, Fulton County. So I'm not surprised that this is happening, but let me let her continue.
Right. Now let's separate out some of the crazy things that I've heard in the media about all of this. One of the things I've heard is that, well, whoever did this must have lied to the magistrate judge in order to get this search warrant. I don't know how you could possibly make that accusation at this time with such little information out there. I am naturally suspicious of all law enforcement seeking search warrants because that is part of my job and part of my nature. I'm just skeptical. So it is certainly something that would need to be vetted at some point. But sitting here today, 24-ish hours afterwards, not sure how we can make that kind of an accusation quite yet. Also, people saying, kind of maybe as an offshoot to that lie, that there can't be any criminal charges because the statute of limitations is 5 years. So let's talk about that for a minute. Yes, the federal fallback statute of limitations on a crime is 5 years, meaning you have to indict somebody within a 5-year period, okay? But it's not that clear cut. First of all, the first statute I told you about where you have to maintain records for 22 months, well, presumably that gives you 22 months after the election to see whether they are doing their job or not. So if the election was in 2020 and they're supposed to maintain these for 22 months, call it 2 years, that's 2022. Then you add the 5-year statute of limitations beyond that. If there was a crime in that period, we're still well within the statute of limitations for that. The other one, the meatier crime, the one that's more serious about tabulating, materially false votes. Well, there is the 5-year statute of limitations, but we all have to remember everybody's favorite crime these days, RICO, and anything associated in some type of conspiracy. RICO and any kind of accused conspiracy is a lot more squishy in terms of how you figure out when that statute of limitations starts to tick, because it wouldn't necessarily start ticking on the day of the election, because conspiracies can last longer than that. Any kind of a cover-up, anything like that, they look at oftentimes the last overt act, the last openly obvious thing that somebody did associated with that crime. And that could have happened long after the election. So and again, I am just trying to glean information based on a very little amount of facts that we have right now. But that would, if it was something that they were looking for with regard to a conspiracy, that would push you way past that 5-year from the date of the election. Okay.
I think this is so ironic, y'all. Y'all know Fonnie loves her some RICO. Don't she love RICO? She loved RICO like she been dating RICO since middle school. I think it's interesting that the very type of case law that Fonnie likes to practice is probably going to actually be weaponized and used against her. She tried to get Trump for RICO, but what is it that y'all know about leftists? Leftists always accuse you of what they're doing. So if they accuse you of something, you automatically assume, yep, they came up with this because this is what they're doing, right? So that would mean the ballots, the tapes, the voter rolls, the Zucker boxes, Stacey Abrams, her organization, everything that they were doing, even social media, how we were suppressed, weren't even allowed to talk about this. That sounds like a lot of conspiratorial implications that can be submitted here. In light of what we know, that means there had to have been some sort of organized network of multiple multiple individuals working in concert with each other in order to commit a crime. So what she is saying here is that, listen, the statute of limitations, if they are going to use this information that they seized from this FBI raid, if they're going to use it in a RICO case, then it gives them broader leeway in terms of not being tied to the statute of limitations. I think that's smart. I think this is probably going to turn, I've always felt like this was some sort of racketeering and organized crime type of scandal. And it didn't work because Fonnie Willis I don't believe she's that talented of a prosecutor. I think she leaned in on RICO to make it look like she's the bee's knees and that she really knows what she's doing. But a lot of times RICO cases are done to confuse you and to make it so sweeping. Instead of prosecuting each case individually, you lump it all together so you can look like you've got a major win. The very method that she used to go against Trump is probably going to be used against Fulton County. And you guys Fulton County is on the hook. I would hate to live in Fulton right now. The tax base, y'all have got to be screaming uncle at this point. Because all of the attorney's fees that are owed to Trump and the co-defendants have not been paid yet. On top of all of the harassment lawsuits, the wrongful termination lawsuits, like Fulton County's tax base has been spending so much money just in legal costs because the corruption in that county runs so deep. And now they got this. Now they have this. I don't know how this is going to land and how it's going to end up. But I sure enough am paying attention. I'm going to let her finish, and then I'm going to give y'all my commentary on the Cascade Cabal and the key players involved and what all of this, why is there so many blacks involved, right? We're going to talk about that.
Okay. We also don't know. We know there's been recounts that may have some effect on all of it. So to assume that this is invalid on its face is making a pretty big assumption right now with not a lot of facts. Now, we also saw people freaking out because they said, we don't know where these ballots are going. We don't know what's going to happen to them. Well, I read in the news that they're being taken back to Virginia, which is where the FBI's headquarters are. So, I would presume that they're going to be keeping them in some safe and secure location. I understand in your heart that when you see the federal government moving state ballots, that is concerning. I am with you on that one. It is concerning. But to stand here today and say, this is the end of democracy as we know it, this is the most terrible thing ever, we're not quite there yet. Now, I do want to kind of address the red team and the blue team freaking out, like I said at the beginning of this. So for the people on the red team that think that this is somehow a vindication for Trump, I think you are getting a little out over your skis, because first of all, we don't know what these ballots will show. It's possible they may show 10 fake votes were cast. That's not going to flip an election. But it is evidence of, if it's evidence of a crime, people could still be prosecuted for it. So I do think in that sense that if there is some evidence of wrongdoing, I, as a Fulton County voter, would like to see that resolved. I will tell you that I, as a Fulton County voter, the way we do it, every state does their voting a little bit differently, but we have a touch screen where we enter our vote and then we hit cast the ballot. The ballot gets printed out. We take our little paper ballot and we walk it over to another machine, and somebody who's working in the polls, a volunteer, tells us to put it in the machine and watch as the counter clicks from the last number to the next number, and that shows that your ballot has been counted. And frankly, in my head, this is what I see when they say, hey, your ballot's been counted. I am wholly untrustworthy of it, because it seems like Fulton County, we're always the last ones to come in with the numbers. And, there's just been so many questions over the years about how trustworthy it all is, that just because a number ticks up from 50 to 51 doesn't make me feel better that my ballot has been counted. So I would like some real sunlight to come into whether or not there has been voter fraud in Fulton County. Even if it's 2 votes, I would like to know about that.
Here's what I'd like to say about this. I think we're forgetting, we also have two senators. We had a Senate race. We had congressional individuals. Raphael Warnock and Ossoff were also part of that 2020 election. Now, hear me clearly. Y'all ain't gonna like this. Okay, listen. It is what it is. I don't like Warnock or Ossoff. I don't. But I don't know what the heck the GOP was thinking when we run Herschel run. Now, I supported Herschel because he was the candidate. I took a picture with Herschel. I was like, Lord, we want you to win. But if this is not an uphill battle, I don't know what is. We couldn't get Herschel to put a suit on. We couldn't get him to put a suit on. Half the time, we didn't even know or understand what Herschel was saying. I was like, oh, what is the mumbling? What is happening here? What is happening here? I know this couldn't have been the best that we could do. This was the best we could crank out. Now, Herschel was a hometown hero. I mean, he is go dogs all day long. He is beloved in this state for a whole lot of reasons, but politics is not one of them. And I just don't think we were thinking through that choice. We didn't look into the saucy side of my son who turned on him. We didn't look into the white wife who was like, he been beating up on me. Like, we didn't see his wife during the campaign. We couldn't get Herschel to put on a suit. Y'all, it matters. It matters. He came out, he campaigned. I don't think he did that bad in the debate. He was making his points. And I believe that he ideologically was the better candidate, but Herschel was a hard sell. He was hard to sell to Georgia. He was hard, period. Okay, it just, so the reason why I bring that up is because we still had the Senate races that were also questionable. And then we had some congressional races, particularly Angela Stanton King ran against Nikema Williams. And Angela has always felt that her race was stolen or misrepresented. And I'll be fair and honest. I mean, Angela Stanton King is not my favorite person in the world by a long shot. Y'all saw her, a ratchet-tang hood rat prison yard crash out that she did on me. But what she failed to understand, I was like, chick, I was advocating for you to win. Even though I've always thought you was an EBT Republican. But, you want to be petty and childish. That's fine. But she believes that her race was misrepresented, and I do too. Believe it or not, she's not the most winsome communicator, but a lot of people identified with her brand of conservatism because she was speaking to the people in a language they could understand. And she was making inroads, and she had Trump's endorsement, if I'm not mistaken. And so I'd be interested in knowing what the actual numbers were for all of the races in 2020, not just the presidential race. I want to see what the Senate outcome was, even just like she said, even if it was 2 votes. I want to know. I want to know because the truth matters and it's worth it. So I'll let her finish. What did I say I was going to do? See, y'all see when I start getting tired, I don't want to talk no more. We're about at that point. So, and somebody's cooking something that smells really good. Like I need to eat. So here's what I'll say. When it comes to election integrity and this FBI raid in Fulton County, what you're seeing in Fulton County play out, that is your Black community in every major city all over this country. When everybody talks about Black representation and we need the first Black this and the first Black this is the legacy of Lyndon Baines Johnson. This is his vision that was carried out in real time. I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And they use Black people to do it. I'm telling you, LBJ knew exactly what he was doing when he said it. He was going to keep them Black folks on the Democrat plantation by hook or by crook. He was going to have them voting for Democrats. And they used the Black elite establishment to manage the plantation to make sure it happens. That is what Fulton County is. You are literally witnessing the new era of colored communism when it's under bad management. This is why you saw the press release with the press conference with Rob Pitts and Marvin Arrington, and I can't remember the other Black lady's name. You're watching the Cascade Cabal at work, y'all. This is what it looks like when it's super sloppy and out of control. But this is what you're witnessing. This is the new school of the Blackity Blacks, and they are a liability to the plantation. Fonnie Willis was a liability. She blew the whole case. And now Fulton County, as it is run from the county commission, even with all of the election integrity stuff, I'm telling you, y'all got the Cascade Cabal that's been in charge for well over 40 years. What you were watching, I'm talking about an invisible power structure, but this visible power structure is known as the Cascade Cabal. That's what we're calling it. It's this secret political clique, more like a faction. And they just represent a coordinated and approved group of Black elites right here in Atlanta. And they all originate from the same source with the same worldview. If you live in Atlanta and you know about Cascade Road, then you should be tracking with what I'm saying. It is home of some of the most powerful Atlanta socialites and a legacy of politicians. They keep it in the family. So I had no doubt that Fulton County elections and all of the other shenanigans that go on in Fulton County, the tentacles of the Cascade Cabal are all over it. And that's what you're seeing coming out of Fulton County. Marvin Arrington, Fonnie Willis, Shirley Franklin, even Keisha Lance Bottoms, who is running for governor, and Rob Pitts. Rob Pitts has been in Fulton County politics since Jesus was an infant. He keeps running for mayor and he never wins, but he stays close enough and connected enough so that he can still have the influence and the power. All of these are all black melanated Marxists who are all in charge. Fulton County has high taxes. They make sure to keep South Fulton, which has money and a decent tax base, but they won't let North Fulton County break off and be free from their tyranny because they want to use their tax base. They just want their money, but they don't want to use the tax base to make the county better. They got to keep the crime the way it is. The corruption absolutely has to stay exactly the way it is. And they want to control the elections because they believe they have harnessed so much power in Fulton County that they can actually sway a state election just with the power of Fulton County alone. It's the largest, most populous county in the whole state. Donald Trump was right to question the 2020 election, and I am glad to see the FBI saying, if it ain't nothing to see, what is the big deal? If there's nothing to see here, surely we should be able to examine some ballots. But they don't want you to see, because they don't want you to see what they've been up to. They don't want you to see that. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this FBI raid. I remain hopeful. At this point, Trump is back in office. I believe this is a personal mission for him where he believes in his heart of hearts that he won, and he wants the truth to come to light. He wants to be vindicated some more. He ain't happy with just his election interference case being thrown out right here down in Fulton County. He's like, no, y'all got my mugshot, which is fine because he got it hanging up in the Oval Office. But his thing is, the American people, we need to tear this cabal down. We need to tear it up root and stern. We need to drain the swamp, as he would say. And yes, it's going to be a little embarrassing. The power structure has got to be broken up. And the sad part about it is, Black people be wanting to make this about race, but what it kind of is. It's about race in the sense that there are Black plantation overseers and overlords that keep you subjugated, but they make you believe that they're fighting for you and that they work for you, but they don't. They're just there to enrich themselves and to maintain their strata of power, all the while reminding you about racism and white supremacy. Mind you, it ain't but 2 white folks, if I'm not mistaken, on the Fulton County Board of Commissioners. Everybody that runs Fulton County is Black. The mayor, the county commission, the DA's office. These are all Negroes. It's the Cascade Cabal at work. You really think that they're holding on to their power? They know that the ish is about to hit the fan, but they're going to scrounge around and do everything that they can to make sure it doesn't happen on their watch. I'd be interested to see if anybody's going to resign. When folks start resigning or saying, I'm not going to seek re-election, or if folks start dropping out of races or decide, I'm about to go write a book, pay attention to what happens. I saw Marvin Arrington and his thick-tongued self attempt to give a statement to the press or whatever. He's the son. His daddy is Cascade Cabal all day, every day. I just pay attention to who gets really silent or who starts talking really loud as a distraction. They're one-trick ponies. Their playbook is very simple. So either you're going to have individuals who are going to do a whole lot of talk about the racism and the white supremacy and voting rights. Like I saw, what's his name? Tamu Obama talk about that. Or you're going to see individuals that are like, you know what? I probably need to bow out while the getting is good now because stuff about to hit the fan. So watch for both of those groups and see what happens. So anyway,